Hey, it's time for another quick tech. Just thought I'd show you this pickguard. I put it up on Instagram yesterday. It's from a 72 or 3 P Bass. It's the original celluloid tortoiseshell 4-ply guard. Sometime in the 80s or 90s, someone's cut a fairly clumsy sort of a rectangular shape out of it, and that's to cover a battery because the bass had an EMG pickup in it. So I thought I'd have a go at repairing it. This is slightly experimental. I've done lots of things similar to this, but never anything quite exactly the same as this, so I thought I'd share my repair. I started out by cleaning all the surfaces with what we call metho, or it's denatured alcohol. You don't want to use any acetone or other strong solvents on celluloid. I think it'd be a bit risky. Then I've cross-hatched the surfaces. You can probably see a bit of it still there, for example, and that will help the fill or the resin actually bond to the plastic or hang on to the plastic. There's actually a gap of about 1 millimeter or more through the whole sort of rectangular cut, which I had to fill. So the first thing I did was to tape it in place and get the edge lined up as best I can, and I used clear packing tape for that so I can see through it later on. Then I mixed up my fill, and I used a mixture of fiberglass resin, Bondo, or what we call builder's bog. I used about probably 3 parts resin to 1 part builder's bog. Just takes a bit of mixing, but the builder's bog adds opacity. It reduces the amount this will shrink as it cures, and it also adds a bit more plasticity too into the final fill. And then I've coloured that with some mahogany dye stain. This is Feast Watson Prooftint. I've talked about this in the past. I'm sure in your part of the world there'll be something similar. This is a spirit-based stain. Put probably 3 or 4 drops of that into about 10 ml of my fill, and I put probably 1, maybe 2 drops of this maple as well. It's not really yellow American maple. This color in Prooftint is more of an orange color, as you can see a bit of spill there. And then of course I put about 3% of the catalyst in, mix it up, and then I filled it from behind very carefully. The other thing that the bog adds, or the Bondo adds, is it thickens the fill. So it's not going to sort of run out of the edges here. It's actually going to have a fair bit of surface tension. I did just sort of work it in carefully with a toothpick, or actually I think it was a bit of guitar string or something. And then I could flip it over and just make sure there's no air bubbles in it. That's why you want to use clear tape. So a 50-year-old celluloid pickguard is going to be a little bit buckled, of course, over the years, and this part was a little bit rounded and so on because it's been cut out probably 25 years ago. So I had to clamp it down onto a piece of scrap timber. I actually put a screw and a washer just in this corner, and then I just used 3 clamps across here with a little piece of scrap timber to hold everything as flat as I possibly could get it. Left it overnight like that until it was hard. Then I've just scraped this back with a Stanley blade, and I've left about probably 0.5 millimeter of the fill on the back, just bridging the repair to give it a bit more structure. And then on the front, I've mixed up another batch and just run a bead all the way along the repair with a toothpick, just very carefully, and I use my magnifier for that so I don't make a mess of it. And then when that's cured, I actually went off to work then, and then last night when I got back from work, I leveled that as best I could with this little file that I'm sure I've shown you in other videos, and it's quite flexible, and the masking tape stops you sort of scratching up the rest of the board, the rest of the guard I should say, and I can just sort of gently work that down until it feels flat. Again, the problem here is that it is a little up and down, a little bit wavy, so I just had to make the most of that. And once it was level, I've just wet sanded that with 1200, 1500 and 2000. Again, I didn't use a block, I just had to use my sort of thumb behind a folded piece of paper because I'm trying to limit the amount of scratching I make. And then it was a matter of using compound. I've actually just hit that by hand with some fine cutting compound, if I can get out of the jar. And I was tempted to use my buffing wheel or my little drill, but I just didn't want to introduce any heat into this, so I've just done this by hand, and it's come up pretty well. That's just fine cutting compound. What I've found is that even just with the fine cut, it's a little bit shiny compared to the rest of the guard, which has got this lovely old sort of patination on it. So I think what I'll do, I think I'll go over the whole guard with my fine cut just to even out the polish. I do have a finer, actually I've got two more finer compounds. There's one that's like a swirl remover, but to be honest, the guard is covered in swirls and I don't really want to remove them. So I think what I will do, I think I'll spend a bit of time maybe just with like a Scotch-Brite pad, something like that, something like a Scotch-Brite pad, and just gently sort of just kind of working a bit more of that patina in to where it's a little bit shiny, just to even that out. It does have a sort of milky oxidized look, and I don't know if I can truly replicate that, so I might just make it evenly glossy and then just let it dull back over time again. I'm pretty happy with the fill and the repair. Again, it's not entirely invisible. The goal was really to make it hard to see from a foot away. If you want to, yeah, that's probably a realistic goal with this sort of repair. Up close, of course, you can see the fill. You could probably make it less visible. For example, here where it runs through an orange fleck, I could probably dig some of that out, mix up an orange batch and put some in there, level and polish it. And maybe over here a bit too. But honestly, yeah, a foot away, and I think you'd have to have it pointed out that it's been repaired. So I'm pretty happy with it. On the edges here, I'm just going to get some white enamel and just put 2 little drops on each of these, leaving the black line in the middle. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the fill. It was a bit of an experiment. Do let me know in the comments if you think there's a better way, or if you've done something like this and you found a technique that works for you. That's really what these quick tech videos are all about, is for interaction, especially if you've got a bit of experience doing this sort of stuff, because I'm always keen to learn new techniques. So there you go. It's one way to repair a battery cover cut in your beautiful 70s celluloid pickguard. I do have another video on the way, a longer format video. This is a rehousing project I'm working on, the pedal. But for now, I'll say thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.